You're listening to the Apex Chronicles, where truth rises, healing begins, and silence ends. I'm your host, Coach Hope, and today I wanted to share a little bit about my childhood and growing up when I was a little girl in St. Louis, Missouri. And my mother used to wake all of us up, and she would say, "Rise and shine, rise and fly," and she would give us cod liver all before we left the house, keep the germs and sickness away. I reflect back on my childhood and how my mother always tried to keep us healthy and safe, and the best way she could as a single mother, and she would do our hair, and she would tell us, "Don't let nobody play in your head, when you go to school," or just period, talking to us about not letting anyone play in our head, right? We had certain rules. You wear that shoelace around your neck with that key. You come in the house, close the door, open it for nobody. Ain't nobody coming knocking on the front door. It won't be me. And she'd say, "Now, those, that's the rule. Phone calls, same way. I'll answer it. I'll send the signal." She gave us the signal. That was her, And we didn't have cell phones. We had the house rotary phone, and no caller ID. But we had the mind to make sure we behaved and listened to, our mother's instructions. And, I was always that curious kid, and I would say, "Well, Mama, what if, I do this, or I do that, or I don't do this," right? And she would just simply let me know what the consequence would be. Say, for instance, she would say, "Now, don't go off your street. Don't go across the street over there. Don't go across the street over there. You stay on this one block." And and I said, "Okay. Well, what if we go across the street?" And when my mother would explain, we may get hit by a car, or something, we might get kidnapped, or and then there we are, not with her. And and sometimes it would be very, very colorful and extreme responses for me, so I would actually see it in picture in my own mind. The consequences, and so yeah, my mother was a hard-working, wise woman, especially when telling us, "Don't let nobody play in your head." That's like telling folk, "Don't let nobody play in your head nor in your face," And I'd get ready, and we'd get on to school and have a good time. I would be excited, and get on the playground to play with the kids. And I remember going to Dewey, and I don't know what happened where I was playing with some of the girls, but then I guess they decided they didn't want to be nice anymore. You know, if you've ever come across any mean girls, and my sister came over and took care of the situation, but she told me, she said, you're going to have to learn how to fight. You're going to have to learn how to stand up for yourself, because I ain't always going to be around. And I was just like, what? As the baby. And, you know, I listened to what she said, and I thought very hard about it for many years to come, as I would go to, you know, various schools and have, you know, recess. And I never had any conflicts with folks, even as a kid. I just wanted to play. I wanted to, you know, get in on that hopscotch, get in on that double dutch, you know. I never really thought of why would you need to fight. If you fight, you have to fight your whole life. You know, because where would it end? But yet, I still, you know, as a kid, I understood that she wasn't always going to be there to defend me. And so I would have to learn to express, articulate myself, or handle my business. So I set out to learn, you know, how to fight my way, right? Because we can't always fight with, you know, our fists or use, you know, other violent tools, but you can learn how to fight in other ways that doesn't necessarily promote violence, you know, or putting your hands on anyone. There are just so many other ways to handle, you know, in differences or beefs, right, or issues. That was my thinking as a young elementary school and middle school kid, you know. But I would go on to, you know, not have to really worry about too many bullies and too many mean girls when I started high school, you know. I think just the schoolgirl, young elementary, that I believe that all of that was behind me. And because I really did not have too, you know, much of issues and conflicts with folks, I always got along with, you know, all the various groups of people who attended my school, my high school, and from athletes to the band to the, you know, burnouts to just different folk, right? Being cool with everybody. I mean, I just like that. That's me. And that's more of my stilo. But that was me in high school. let me say, that was my perspective and how I moved at that time. But as you age and you get older and you go through and you experience various of relationships that you have to, navigate other personalities and conflicts and, even bullying as an adult, and it's important, absolutely, to raise your voice and be heard and defend yourself the best way you can. And once again, non-violently, as best you can. But if you have to protect yourself, that's not you being violent, that's you protecting yourself from the violence. And that's one thing about it. Learning how to protect yourself from people who want to prey upon you, and keeping yourself safe. Like my mother sent me out of the house altogether and kept me safe. It was my duty and my responsibility to keep myself safe and put together while I was outside the home, representing my family, my mother, at school. Yeah. I went through college and, once again, never really having too much of a conflict with my peers, just getting along with folks. I believe there was only one time I defended myself, and I was living at that time in Ohio, and it was all bad. It was very bad, and I defended myself, and that person, was not well after our encounter. And I just saw that whole experience is so ugly to me that I never wanted to be in a situation where I felt like I needed or had to protect myself. And I was probably one out of 14 or 15, African American children attending this school at that time, back in the day. And sometimes I think about that occasion and hope that that person is okay. I really do. However, I wouldn't change it because it was necessary. I don't really believe in violence. and hurting people intentionally and with malice, and to be vengeful with it and cause much great suffering. Now, that's just not me. You know, I grew up in the church. My grandmothers and aunts, you know, evangelists in my family, singers in my family, and preachers, people who love the Lord and who taught me how to embrace all people, you know, no matter if they're family or not, you know, if they're friends or family friends, you know, they showed me how to love all people and welcome all people. You know, my grandmother, after church, we get out of church and everybody go up to her house, and I just was always excited. I couldn't wait to get out of church. I can go and get them greens and some fried chicken and some of that cornbread and pound cake and, you know, peach cobbler, whatever grandmama made, you know. But she would also fix a plate for a gentleman who, you know, lived in the neighborhood. I have no idea where he lived. I think he lived down the street and around the corner. But he would come and he would stand outside the driveway area, and I guess my grandmother would see him, and she would tell me or anyone else in the house, you know, to go and take that plate over there to James, and we would take it out to him, and he would say thank you, and he would be about his way, you know. And that was just so my grandmother, you know. And I remember we would have vacation Bible school in the summertime, and I would be at my other grandmother's house. And both of my grandmothers lived on the same street, but, you know, about 4 or 5 blocks apart from one another. And I would be at my other grandmother's house and early morning, right? My mother dropping us off, and we get in there and say hi to our grandmommy. And she would be making her some breakfast and making some grits and toast and, you know, what have you, and listening to the gospel station at 690 or 1600 a.m. You know, always the word on, and her stories going on in the front room with the TV on, and church in the kitchen, you know. I tell you, my roots go deep. And we would get ready for church, and I remember when I was 7 years old and I joined church, Mount Zion Baptist Church in Richmond Heights. Yeah. And the pastor say, Jesus was 7 years old, just like you, you know. And I was like, yes, he was. Yes, he was. And I enjoyed church, even as a teenager. And growing up in the church and enjoying tent revivals and joining the choir, directing in the choir, youth choir. And that was beautiful. I loved that, that childhood and adolescence years was so fun. And I would break dance, all the time. All the time. I was very good as well, Tried not to be too competitive, but it was in my spirit. Yeah. And one thing, about it, no matter if I had on a little polka dot, little white mini skirt I would wear, and I would just be breakdancing, just all over the place. Dancing fever, I tell you. Yeah. And one thing I hated about going, though, to church, it was, wearing them stockings. Ooh, them stockings. I just did not like it. Yeah. Itchy stockings. And, but I was so glad when, moving through the era of when people stopped wearing stockings and just went with their bare legs. I thank whoever started that movement, I tell you. Because I was like, now, there you go. I will put on the skirt now for a little while, okay? But I still have my shorts on underneath, because I be outside playing too rough sometimes. But getting back to the word, I thought I was going to grow up to be an evangelist someday, I would say to myself. But I wouldn't be the type of evangelist minister who was in the pulpit. As a young teenager, I wanted to be among the same community as Jesus was. Because I was reading the Bible. Shoot, I done read that Bible a few times from the front to the end. And I'm still learning. Because I've forgotten several things. But it's coming back to, my mind now. But I'm so grateful to have grown up, and having the knowledge that I have and the desire that I had to be close and have a close relationship, with the Creator, right? And I would always have these conversations in my journal writing. I think I've been writing since the 4th grade, going into the 5th grade, and but I would always have conversations with God, and I didn't think God was hearing me, but I was wrong. I was. And I even thought that I wasn't as much as, God's favorite. But I was wrong. I was. I was big wrong on that one. But yeah, I just going and being in revival, going to church night and day, day and night. I mean, I was, as my grandmother would call me, I was a good girl. Yeah, I was a good girl. And I was like, I am such a good girl. When am I gonna just step out and do something not so good girlish? What would that look like, right? Who knew? I mean, there ain't nothing wrong with getting in good trouble. I'll tell you that much. But as I have, been navigating my life as an adult, I believe I've come across some mean girls, some mean boys who've grown up to be mean men and mean women. Yeah. And see, you can't walk around putting your hands on people, in spite of the fact that sometimes people do. But how do you protect yourself from that, right? It's not a 1, 2, 3 easy thing to figure out or do, especially when you have children involved, your career involved, or other family or other situations financially, involved. Yeah. You just never really think about the people who you may have to protect yourself from because they, are cosplaying one personality, or, a positive person, or whole person, but then here they are with this other side of who they really are, which is a bully, abusive, a love bomber, emotionally, psychologically abusive. Like, I'm just really trying to figure out, where did I miss the dating class of, who you should look out for, right? We know we're looking for a Boaz, right? We know we're looking for a virtuous woman. But what if you get someone cosplaying those characters, and really they are the unruly woman, and a foolish, man who may all on the outside look good. It's like that fig tree with all them green leaves and produce no fruit. And I need and would love a class on that. I wish I had one on that. As I was, young and navigating life in the dating world. That's crazy. We have different role models around you. You look at your uncle, you look at your, all of your resources around you. And you see people who, you say, now the person that if I could, become anything, it would be something similar to this person or that person, but still yet with my own twist and my theme on it, right? Not taking and cosplaying and pretending to be, but really walking in that thing. I never came home with my hair messed up because I had allowed someone to play in it. No. I was too afraid of the consequence of coming home with my hair all messed up, or it being undone, or it being braided in a different way than what my mother had braided it, I don't ever think that you can be prepared for a phone call like the one I received 18 years ago, when I received a phone call a week or so before school started in August. And on that phone call, I was told that my children wanted to stay and live in Chicago with their father. And I objected and said no, that they needed to come home because I had already had their school clothing and school supplies all ready. And although we co-parented together, and this was a fairly new transition of the children having to have us divided or, split apart and living in Chicago, Illinois, and the other in St. Louis. But nevertheless, children are resilient, and they have, strength to bounce back like we as an adults do. But instead of allowing that moment of separation, of sadness because the visit was over and the summer was over and the activities that were being done, all of those things were coming to an end, conclusion. And now here we are embarking upon a new school year. And my children were placed on the phone one by one as they were crying. And they said that they wanted to stay and live with their father. And I was devastated as I sat there listening to them crying. And my daughter first, and then I could hear my son in the background crying and getting on the phone and telling me. And I again said, no, it's time to come home. And after that, the phone call ends, And the concluding statement is, well, I'm keeping them. Goodbye. And I hang up a block, and I'm sitting at this restaurant with an old friend, and I am bewildered as to what just took place, what just hit me, because I know I didn't hit it, but what is this uncircumcised Philistine? What is this? And I frantically, I go and I call the police, and and they came to the house. I said, you look around, you go in their rooms and check both of their bedrooms. They got plenty of, toys and games and clothing, and you want to look in the refrigerator because there's food there. See, being a child abuse and neglect case manager, for all the years and working with the state, here I am on the other side. Trying to figure out how I can get my children back. The police called him. He told the police, hey, we share the kids. We co-parent. She's just upset. The police said, well, ma'am, we really don't get involved with, domestic disputes and all such as that, unless you have some type of court order that you have custody, the children stay here, any paperwork that says all of that. Because if your names are both on the birth certificate, then you're both allowed to share your children, and the children can go freely between. I said, well, no, I have child support papers that I just received. Child support papers that I just got these. And they said, well, no, that won't work. That won't do. You need a specific order saying that the physical custody and care is here as the primary household. And I said, no, I don't have that. And then he proceeded to say, well, he'll bring the kids back. That's what he said. He'll bring the kids back. I guess he thought, what man would want to hold onto some children, right? I tell you, people with their assumptions and their thoughts, they never helped me. And so, I said to that officer, this is different this time. Because it was something in my spirit that I knew was different this time. It went a little deeper than that, right? And so he was just like, well, you have to go to, Clayton and go to, filing and all of the instructions there. And so I'm like, what? Oh my God. Okay. So I go and I try to talk to someone and trying to find an attorney. I'm trying to go, and I know all these different judges from family court and different colleagues that are attorneys and guardian ad litems. I know all these people that I work with, but can't none of them help me. Not directly. So I said, well, can you refer me to any of your friends? Can you send me into the right direction? And then if you send me in the right direction, I got it from there. And they gave me the different colleague friends, family attorneys, and different people. And I'm like, okay. Calling different attorneys and so forth, and they give me a consultation and they have a conversation with me. And when it's all said and done, they also give me the bill, and they explain the breakdown of how much it's going to cost. I don't have that kind of money. Not as a caseworker, social worker. I don't have that kind of money. Let me go over here to the legal aid. Let me go over here somewhere where I can get some direction and some help. Perhaps I can qualify. And then when I go there, and then they ask me, well, wait, the children, where are they? I said, well, they're in Illinois with their father, and he has kidnapped them, and he refuses to bring them back home. And they said, well, now you need an attorney who is licensed to practice in both Missouri and in Illinois. And the breath is just leaving my body. I am losing faith and hope, frantically trying to figure out how to get my children back. Just the nervousness in my stomach. It was like all of the nerve endings I could feel throughout my body. I was emotional and angry and just confused and filled with fear. Fear of the unknown, and fear of the why, and fear of the what did I miss? And it's all my fault for letting my children go. It's all my fault. I can't find them because he moved. No forwarding address was provided to me. So shameful. I felt such shame for myself for trusting that we would co-parent in a healthy way. It's hard to adult and work with other adults who want to and choose to be in conflict with you. That's hard. It's hard when they want to be mad with you and upset with you to try to hurt you and cause you such pain and suffering. And not just you. Because see, taking the children and withholding them from me and their family and my family, that's child abuse. That's parental alienation, where a parent is taking a child or children and using them to battle and to shield for the other person and parent who, for whatever reason, the relationship ended, for whatever reason, things were not what they were supposed to be or what they looked like on the outside or once presented. So things change, people change, you mature, you grow out of one another, all of the things. But in the beginning, you loved one another, you liked one another, you wanted to be, the father of the love child we would have together. The whole thing, just looking at this great loss of time, loss of years, loss of high school graduations, pictures, lost holidays, lost hugs, lost kisses, lost singing songs and talent shows like we used to in the living room when the kids, they would come in and my son would have on his Rams jersey and a tie or either his Batman or Superman Disney outfit, or my daughter coming out with her princess dresses on. Yeah. I miss talking to them and teaching them in the way they should go. It's a lot that you miss when you've been alienated from your children. You miss holidays and Mother's Days and their birthdays and other special occasions. But you just miss every day of their life. No matter if it's a big thing happening or just them going to school and having a good or a bad day and being there to talk and help them navigate, junior high, middle school, and, high school and college. You miss a lot. And not only did I miss a lot, but my sisters and my father and my mother, who was also heartbroken by all of this. Parental alienation doesn't just impact one person and that's it. It impacts the community. It impacts families, whole entire families. it impacts our children. And it is definitely the silent diagnosis that the APA folks, I guess they don't want to give it its own diagnosis, or rather diagnostic code, right? So I say, what do you do when you have to fight a silent diagnosis, an invisible diagnosis? Because that's what parental alienation is. It's the erasure of a parent, right? A targeted parent, right? Where one parent turns the children away from the other through coercive control and other manipulative tactics to gain, the attention and love of the children. And a lot of brainwashing that does take place, during the times of grooming. I felt like a failure for many years, and I am just coming out of not feeling like I am the failure here. I've come a long way from being that little girl playing on the school ground and, just persevering so much. I've come a long way. And I believe that now is the time to elevate my voice, to speak my truth, and not continue to harbor or hold on to my abusers' ugly little secrets. I refuse to die with the truth in me. I refuse to leave this earth and have my children believe the lies and the manipulation that they were told throughout the years of their life about their mother. I refuse to allow for bullies and mean people and mean-spirited people and mean people who have no power over me nor my destiny. I am here to reclaim my voice, reclaim my mind, and reclaim my time. This is the Apex Chronicles. I'm Coach Hope. And remember, hope is my weapon. Healing is my message. Until next time, may your silence find voice and your voice find healing. Thank you for listening to the Apex Chronicles.